Okay, you submitted a resume and now you look at it and you're like, crap, it's got a typo in it. What do I do? You know what? Hey, it happens. It happens probably more than you think. As a former recruiter, I can tell you I have seen hundreds of resumes that have typos in it or punctuation errors or grammatical mistakes. Now, the question is, you've done it. What should you do? Hi, I'm Shelley Piedmont, a former recruiter, now a career coach, and I believe you can thrive, not just survive in your job. So, you made that mistake. I have made that mistake. I was mortified when I submitted a resume and I realized I had a spelling error in it. But you know what? It wasn't the end of the world. It really wasn't. Now, I didn't end up getting that job, and I don't think it's because I didn't have the correct spelling. I think it was because of other factors. But it happens quite often. So let's talk about what you do. Now, the first thing is that you should avoid that situation in the first place. And a lot of time, the reason that there is a typo is because you're not proofreading your resume. Now, many people write a resume and they'll proofread it, but then they may go and edit it, and then they don't proofread it after the edit. And they think, oh, I'm just changing a word or I'm moving something around and I don't need to do that. Well, you should always proofread one time at least before you submit, because it's so easy to be able to add those mistakes that you don't even realize you are doing. So first of all, always proofread. The second thing is, I always ask people to have somebody else read that resume before they submit it. Because when you are working on your own resume, what happens often is that all those words start looking the same and your mind just can't pick out the errors. So it's always a good practice to give it to somebody who, has good writing skills, editing skills, and with that fresh set of eyes, they often can pick out what you can't see. So that's a suggestion. Another thing I would do is when you have made some edits, step away for at least a few minutes, hours, even a day, and then come back. Oftentimes that break kind of resets your brain, and therefore you can see now any kind of mistakes that you've made that you might not have seen before, just because your brain gets a little muddled and it just can't pick those things out. Another suggestion is to use your Spellcheck on your word processing, or another kind of software like Grammarly that will be able to do a final check for you. I do have a word of caution though. Sometimes it's going to pick up things that are not necessarily wrong. So Grammarly, for example, might flag that you do not have a subject for a bullet point, but that's okay. In resumes, it's a little different format and those things are implied. So just take that into account. Another thing you can do is go through your resume and look for one type of mistake. So spelling, for example. Go through and look for spelling and then go through that. Then the next time around, go look for punctuation errors. And then the third time, look for grammar errors. Sometimes when you're looking focus-wise on one particular type of error, that's easier to pick out. And then my last suggestion, just to shake up your brain, is start from the bottom and work your way up, especially with spelling mistakes. If you look at the words not in order, but in backwards order, then sometimes your brain can pick those out. But should you worry if you make a mistake? Well, I can tell you from my experience as a recruiter and also from what I hear from other recruiters. And for the most part, recruiters are pretty good about overlooking that type of error unless the position really requires great attention to detail. If that's the case, then you have demonstrated that you don't have good attention to detail, and that likely is going to mean you're not going to move forward. But in other roles where that's not necessarily the highest priority, many recruiters will give you a pass just as long as you meet the requirements of the job. In their minds, they're looking for the best qualified person for the role. And if everything else lines up, then they're not going to hold it against you because they know errors happen. As in my case, it happened to me. So it's hard for me as a recruiter then to hold other people to the same high accountability level that I wasn't able to do. Now, there will be some recruiters that are stickler for having everything correct. Or it could be their hiring managers are the same. In that case, they are going to hold you into account for that. And there's really nothing you can do at that point because the initial impression has been one that they have now disqualified you. So if you find a mistake and you want to do something about it, you have some options. You could just upload a revised version of your resume into the applicant tracking system. Many applicant tracking systems do allow different versions of your resume, and if you can get into the portal and it allows you to do so, you can just upload the new version and just call it a day at that point. The other thing you could do if it is not available for you to upload a revised version, and if you feel like it is something that you need to let the recruiter know has to be corrected, such as you've put in the wrong email address, you misspelled it, or maybe you have the wrong dates on your resume, and in that case it may not be in your favor, looking like maybe you have short tenure, then you can email a revised resume to that recruiter. You just attach a short note, make it professional, make it very polite, explain that you've updated the resume and that you apologize for any inconvenience this may have caused. Simple like that. You don't need to get into a long writing about what happened. That's not irrelevant. Just give them the information that they need. But I would say at the end of the day, you need to let it go. You can be really upset with yourself, and this can derail you from your job search. So we all make mistakes. I made the mistake. And the best thing is to learn from the mistake, learn how to not repeat it again. So that may be for you putting in processes that will help you to catch any kind of errors. But after that, you just need to let it go. If it was meant to be, it will be. If it wasn't meant to be, then it won't be. But you can just move on and find that job where you can thrive.